Take two identical pendulums and connect them with a thin spring. When you pull one and let go, it does not just swing. It slowly loses its amplitude while the second pendulum starts to move. Eventually, the first one stops completely, only to start moving again as the second one settles. This chaotic exchange of energy looks like a mess of overlapping sine waves. But if we change our perspective, this complex motion reveals itself as the sum of two perfectly simple, independent patterns. Why does the system appear so complicated in our standard coordinates? And where is the hidden geometry that makes it simple? To understand this, let us look at two masses, m1 and m2, sliding on a frictionless surface. They are connected to walls by springs with constants k1 and k3, and to each other by a central spring, k2. We track their positions using x1 and x2, measured from their equilibrium points. When we write the forces using the second law of motion, we get a system of two second-order differential equations. The acceleration of the first mass depends not just on its own position, but also on the position of the second mass. This is the definition of coupling. The two particles are no longer individuals. They are a single interconnected system where every movement ripples through the central spring. We can write these equations as m1 times x1 double prime equals negative k1 plus k2 times x1 plus k2 times x2, and m2 times x2 double prime equals k2 times x1 minus k2 plus k3 times x2. In matrix form, this looks like m times x double prime equals negative k times x. Here, m is the mass matrix and k is the stiffness matrix. The presence of non-zero values outside the main diagonal of k is the mathematical signature of coupling. It means that the force on the first mass is influenced by the state of the second. If k were a diagonal matrix, each mass would bounce at its own natural frequency, completely ignoring its neighbor. But how do we mathematically transform this matrix to see the underlying simplicity? Imagine you are trying to describe the motion of a car suspension as it drives over a speed bump. If you only look at the height of the front left wheel and the front right wheel, the data is messy because when one side goes up, the sway bar pulls the other side with it. This is exactly what is happening with our coupled masses. The x1 and x2 axes we chose are convenient for our eyes because they represent individual particles, but they do not align with the natural ways the system wants to move. We need to find a new set of axes, a new coordinate system where the interaction disappears. Let us visualize the configuration space. Instead of watching two masses move on a line, imagine a single point moving on a two-dimensional plane where the horizontal axis is x1 and the vertical axis is x2. Every possible state of the two-mass system is a single point on this graph. As the masses oscillate, this point traces out a complex winding path. For most initial conditions, this path fills a rectangular area over time. However, there are two special directions on this plane where the path becomes a simple straight line passing through the origin. These directions represent the normal modes of the system. What is actually happening geometrically when the system follows these straight lines? The first normal mode occurs when the masses move in the same direction with the same amplitude. Geometrically, this is a line at a 45-degree angle in our configuration space, defined by x1 equals x2. In this mode, the central spring never stretches or compresses. The two masses move as a single unit. The second mode occurs when they move in opposite directions, x1 equals negative x2, compressing the central spring to its limit. These two lines are perpendicular to each other. By rotating our entire coordinate system so that our new axes, q1 and q2, align with these lines, we perform a change of basis that removes the coupling. In this new q-coordinate system, the equations of motion separate into double q1 equals negative omega 1 squared q1 and double q2 equals negative omega 2 squared q2. Now, q1 and q2 are independent simple harmonic oscillators. The first represents the center of mass motion, while the second represents the relative stretching motion. This is the power of the eigenvalue problem. We are looking for vectors v such that the matrix K simply scales them, expressed as kv equals lambda v. Geometrically, these eigenvectors are the axes of the natural vibration of the system. The eigenvalues tell us the square of the frequencies at which these modes vibrate. But what happens if the masses are not equal, or the springs are different? When the masses m1 and m2 differ, the symmetry breaks. The normal modes are no longer at perfect 45-degree angles in the x1 and x2 plane. The configuration space becomes skewed. To find the new axes, we must solve the characteristic equation where det of m minus omega squared m equals 0. Visually, this is like taking our square grid and stretching it into a diamond shape until the physics becomes simple again. Any complex motion you see in a coupled system is just a linear combination, a weighted sum of these fundamental modes. It is like a chord played on a piano. The messy sound wave is just the sum of individual pure notes. This geometric approach scales up to any number of objects. If you have a line of 100 atoms in a crystal lattice, you have a 100-dimensional configuration space. Finding the normal modes involves finding the 100 orthogonal axes in that high-dimensional space where the atoms oscillate independently. These are what physicists call phonons. Whether it is 2 blocks on a spring or the thermal vibrations in a diamond, the math remains the same. We are looking for the coordinate rotation that turns a coupled matrix into a diagonal one. We have mastered how mass and springs interact in a straight line, but objects in the real world are not just points on a track. They have shape and volume. When an object is a solid body rather than a collection of points, its coupling becomes even more intricate. If you spin a non-symmetrical object, the rotation around one axis can spontaneously trigger a rotation around another. This happens because the way mass is distributed relative to the axes of rotation creates a complex mapping between angular velocity and angular momentum. To understand how a solid object prefers to spin and why some rotations are stable while others are chaotic, we need to move from the stiffness matrix of springs to a new geometric construct. The logic of coupled oscillators is the foundation, but the true master of rotational coupling is waiting. Find out how geometry governs rotation by clicking on the next video about what is the inertia tensor.